Knobloch's Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, Process Production and Social Media. Hey knowers, welcome to our podcast. We are Knobloch's Dance, a social media-based company. We strive to say no to the box. We connect interdisciplinary art, technology, and artists to re-envision the process of art making and sharing.
Hello, and welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. This is your co-host, Martheya.
This is YeaJean Joy.
We're so excited to share our conversation with you today with Joan Breibart of PhysicalMind Institute. She is an inventor, an author, a podcaster on her own podcast, Body Conversations, and a true expert in diet and exercise. With her humorous and honesty, she really dismantles the truth in the wellness industry.
It was fun. Joan shared about the history of the PhysicalMind Institute, good props that PhysicalMind Institute sell, and how dancers can use it. And she also introduced about 80 Bytes plan. This is a really cool app. You all should download it. You can see the details. You can hear the details later. And she also shared business tips for the people who want to open or manage their own fitness studio. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yes, we really hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I just want to apologize. I've lost my voice a bit, so you're getting a little bit of a raspy tone from me. But without further ado, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Enjoy.
Hey guys, Martheya here. So we don't normally do this, but I have something really special I want to share with you. So Joan Breibart sent over a huge box of the props and products that we talk about in this interview, and I want to let you know why these are really important to incorporate into your at-home collection, especially when we're all stuck indoors during the COVID-19 pandemic. You need to check out the Tie 4 or the Tie 4X. It's basically like a wearable reformer. It's a really great way to incorporate that strength training and resistance while we're stuck indoors, especially those of you who are probably missing your Pilates class. The Parasiter Minis is one of my favorite props. I've been going on a ton of walks, and this has been really great to help stretch out the calves and the foot after a lot of time spent on my feet. And lastly, you should you need to incorporate the Smart Seat into just your daily lifestyle. Basically, you just set it on your chair and you sit on it while you're working, and it really helps to activate the core and lengthen the spine while we're staring at our computer screens probably all day long. Well, thank you for listening. Now let's get back into the episode.
Can you briefly explain what PhysicalMind Institute is?
Well, PhysicalMind is the successor to the Institute for the Pilates Method, which I started in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1991. If I had been smarter and I'd put somebody on every street corner in the USA, I would have asked everybody, or 100 people minimum, what do you think of the Pilates method? And of course, none of them would have even have known. They would have said well, how do you say that? And so anyway, I started this and then spent 10 years in lawsuits, as did other people. Eventually it became PhysicalMind Institute, which is a much better name anyway. And then we it was effectively canceled a trademark. In the history of the United States government, maybe only 100 trademarks have been canceled out of trillions.
Wow.
Yeah, really something. So that was it. It was started to market the Pilates method, which I did not know that nobody knew. I was from New York. I had done it in the 60s when Joe was alive. And when I moved to Santa Fe and retired in my 40s, I met Eve Gentry, and she was his #1 and first teacher, not Romana. And we decided in about an hour to start this, and it was an immediate success.
So could you talk about maybe what PhysicalMind Institute is now?
Right now, it's an organization that develops innovative products to be used by anybody who has a body, but they're particularly useful for dancers who have serious interests in maintaining their bodies. And Pilates teachers, of course, use them with clients, and athletes like golfers and other people with bodies, particularly professional, where they have a professional interest, use these products, and we're developing them, and they're patented, unique products.
It's so fascinating. I feel like in talking with you, in preparing for our interview with you, you're an expert in so many different things.
Well, this is my fifth.
So we're going to...
My fifth. And I think it'll be my last because I'm going to be 79 in a month, so I don't know how many more careers I can do. But I started out in 1963 in publishing at Scholastic Magazines and Books, which is probably the best company I ever worked at.
That's amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about your podcast, Body Conversations.
Yeah.
So I feel, in listening to it, I feel like you really peel back kind of this marketing facade of the wellness industry. And in your podcast, I noticed that you mentioned that there are 4 health words that everyone should know, such as cortisol, leptin, insulin, and ghrelin. Ghrelin, thank you. Could you talk more about why these are the 4 health words we should know?
Yeah, and it's very sad because these are hormones, they're complicated, and it's not as if you can do this and that and everything will be fine. But cortisol, everyone has cortisol. You need cortisol. I mean, if somebody's running after you, cortisol kicks in and enables you to do it, right? And so and when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol, has to kick in to get you up. The problem has been, whether it's stress or obesity or whatever, people now have permanently elevated cortisol. It's supposed to go up and go down. Mm-hmm. And the problem with it staying elevated is that you have 4 times the receptors in your abdomen. And if you look at people, they don't have waist, right? And they're fat in that area, which of course is the most dangerous area. And this is mostly elevated cortisol. Now, insulin, of course, you all know about insulin. Unfortunately, people now, I think there's 76 million Americans who are pre-diabetic, which means that their numbers are very bad and their blood sugar and all of that kind of problem. Too depressing to talk about it.
Scary, yeah.
Scary. And then there's another 33 million who are already diabetic. And we're not talking about the couple, fortunately, it's only about 1% who have, essentially they're born with it, which is type 1. That type 2, which is what everyone's talking about, used to be called adult onset until about maybe 5 or 10 years ago, probably 5 years ago. And the reason they had to change it was like same thing with Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's now KFC. Same thing with Weight Watchers. It's WW. Because they didn't want to say anymore adult onset when they've got kids that are 8 and are obese and they have it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's it. Because they renamed it just so they'd be, not having to acknowledge the problem. Anyway, leptin is what makes you stop eating, or supposed to make you stop eating. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to feel full. Your brain says, I have enough calories, and you stop. But it's not functional. It's not that people who are fat don't have leptin. It's that it's just not activated. So they feel hungry all the time. They could eat a huge meal. They could be sitting around. Their brain is saying, you're hungry. Eat, eat, eat. Mm-hmm. And, of course, ghrelin wants you to eat. Because if you didn't have that, some people might never eat, but not if they're living in America where there's food everywhere all the time and it's cheap as can be. But so those are 4 things. Now, no one knows that, calories and gluten.
Exactly.
And whatever. But they don't know the real thing because the real thing is scary.
Right.
So the way that you can really affect, in other words, have an input on cortisol, which you really have to deal with immediately, is through breathing. And there was a professor at Harvard, Benson, who did this research, I think in the 60s, and he published something called the relaxation response. And basically he was testing transcendental meditation because it was very popular. I did it in New York in 1970, I think. And they thought, is this thing just a fad, or does it have any positive benefits? And so they had this fellow at Harvard, a professor, do a test. And what he came up with is that rhythmic, deep breathing done properly will impact your body positively and tune it up and lower cortisol and just put you in the right state. So when you look at Paracenter, you've seen this very long roller we have. It's dual rollers, right? And of course, when you look at it, you'll say, wow, that's a strange looking thing, right? And then you see that your spinous process, right? This, that bony thing down your back.
Yeah.
It's kind of housed in the channel. And that means that when you lie down, all those little vertebrae can let go just a teeny, but there's, 22, 25, I don't remember exactly. I should, but anyway, whatever it is, they let go and you start to let go. And meanwhile, you have that headrest, which will, what can I say? It tractions you. It'll traction. So that gives you a little more positioning, stability, letting go of the body. Then you have the rib wrap. And so what we do in Pilates is actually very transferable, which is posterior lateral breathing. In other words, if you look at yogis, they do deep abdominal breathing, right?
Right.
To get a better impact in terms of cortisol lowering, I think it's better to breathe higher up.
You are listening to Navvox Dance.
We talked about what are the different somatic practices, big picture of it. And you say thinking, avoiding perfection. Can you talk about more about that, please?
Yeah. Well, you'll have to coach me a bit, but thinking to me is the most important thing because, this morning I talked to Marissa Servalis, who danced New York City Ballet. She's in her 50s. And we had a discussion today because I have a new video and she looked it over and told me what she thought. This was on Tie 4X with Emily Zachary Smith, who's, she's in charge of ballet for Tremaine and she's, has a good career. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, she looks terrific, Joan, but, I don't want you saying anymore that she has a perfect body. You shouldn't be saying that. Other people will feel intimidated. I said, I'm so sick of pandering to all these people. But what I'm also saying is they don't want to think. Dancers are very smart. Think of all the choreography you have to learn. But my son was an SAB. So I want to bring that, let me say that, when he was 7 or 8. And he didn't like it. He didn't like those old Russian women telling him what to do. And he was unusual, obviously, because people go along with it. But he wouldn't go along with it, even though his turnout is, it's 180 degrees. And
wow.
That's a problem. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're in a dance, if you're serious about dance, you have revered teachers and they tell you what to do and you stop thinking even though you have the ability to think. Mm-hmm. They're not training you to think. They're training you to listen to them and do what they're telling you. And I think that's a problem in the 21st century. Mm. You have to be able to think now. And right. You have to be able to, one of the Pilates sites, it's called Fusion or something, they always say, never stop learning. Well, in my opinion, they don't have anybody learn on that site. Those people are being taught. That's a big difference. You're in social media today. You have the little thing called the internet, and everyone's bombarded. You have to be able to look at those videos and look at the social media and say, that's not making any sense. Or, oh, yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to do some more with that. So
yeah, I was actually curious, how are you able to differentiate what is actually valuable educational knowledge when we are kind of flooded with all this information, especially in this wellness space?
Yeah. Well, let's start off with the fact, unfortunately, that I'm 78. That means I have a lot of experience, right? So, when you start with a lot of experience, you can easily
filter through.
Yeah, that's so I can't tell you, that would have been as easy for me when I was your age. But I was brought up to be skeptical. And in my generation, and Jill's too, people had common sense. And everybody can have common sense because it's common. But you're in a time when you're told that you need an expert for everything, right?
Right, exactly.
I read an article in Self Magazine, which, I read the whole thing every single day. And It was asinine. I mean, it was about shampooing your hair, and if you put the conditioner on before you shampoo, da-da-da-da. And I thought, oh my God, they could write an article and have a dermatologist, a trichologist, a hairdresser, and an influencer telling you about conditioner. You know, that it's just sometimes just saying, stop it, being skeptical. You know, reading something instead of being drawn in. First of all, every editor, and you know, I've had tremendous publicity because of Pilates and before that, all these editors, and they're in New York and I know them, whatever, they have Google searches for things, right? And so some little study comes on. The funniest one to me was the study of 12 women in Sweden who took more calcium, and they had a 1.2% better result in weight loss. I mean, come on. You know, but they published that. In fact, actually, the New York Times did a story, it must have been 5 years ago, because they picked up something about chocolate and pregnancy, and they wanted to create a lot of noise, and they more or less said things that are not true, which is, if you're pregnant, you should have lots of chocolate. That's whatever. So what I'm trying to tell you is it's sometimes stepping back and being very skeptical.
That's great advice. So I want to talk a little bit more about the 80 Bites plan. I know this is kind of housed under the Physical Mind Institute, but this is actually an app that you have, which is really cool. It has a cute little stomach. We checked it out. But I was hoping before we talk about the app, if you could talk about the importance of chewing and biting, because I feel like this is a concept that not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, nobody's talking about it, and it's been lost. But strangely, and this is, you'll find interesting, it was in the 20s or 30s, the richest people in America, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, I mean, the elite of the elite, were fans of something called Fletcherizing. And you can Google it, you'll find it. It won't be easy, but you'll find it. And this was a man who believed that chewing your food was the only thing you had to pay attention. Not what, right, but chewing. And it was all wrong because, you know, everything here is hurry up, quick, and people. When I watch people eating, when I'm in, I can be anywhere. I mean, I could be in a salad place like Digginer. I could be in a hamburger or whatever. No one even chews. They just swallow the food, right?
Yeah.
It's the thing you can do for your digestion. But I think I did mention I work with Deborah Wingert, who's just one of the very best. And you know, she was principal in New York City Ballet. Now, she happens to be tall, so it was easier for her to manage her weight, but Balanchine wanted very thin girls, really thin. And she said to me, you know, she has a daughter who's 18, and she's concerned about her daughter. She said, I'm going to do 80 Bites. And I said, well, I'm going to quote you, Freud. You're going to think why, but I'm going to tell you, which is, he said, if you don't pay for it, it won't work. And she said, I know what you mean. So she paid for it, right? Because I could have, obviously I worked with her, I could have said, here, I'll just register you. And after she did it, she said, I don't see what's unique here. This is just the dancer diet. I said, I know, but dancers are a very small part of the population.
Could you talk more about what the dancer diet might look like?
Well, it looks like a person who would want to perform, and might be performing, or they're in class, or they're rehearsing, and they don't want to feel bloated and heavy. And the only way to avoid that is not, oh, well, I'm going to have keto or I'm going to have carbohydrates, is to have a small quantity of food. Small, and chew it very well, and don't just eat it quickly, and don't talk when you're eating it, because then you'll swallow air. It's not terrible, but you'll feel bloated. Your stomach is a little 6-inch container underneath your left breast, and it should stay little, right? And you should have sensitivity. But I can go to there's a vegan place right around here, good food, I go there sometimes, and I watch these girls eating a quantity of food that I can hardly believe they can eat, but it's all, in their terminology, healthy. So they're that maybe they shouldn't be eating so much quantity. They don't even have the clue of it. Anybody who eats at this point should use the app. And then if you find you have a problem, which you may want to do the program. But I will tell you that, it's going to come around that people will not have this unlimited quantity of food that's very inexpensive, because we have climate change and there's going to be huge disruptions. So they better get ready, is what I'm saying. All right? So
Yes.
it's not your fair share to be overeating just because you think it's healthy. We have it set up in what we consider the ideal format, which is you buy the program, which is $60, and every 3 days you log on and you get new content. And it takes 12 steps, so it's 36 days. And that's the ideal way. And also, if you have questions, you email and we answer them. But people want to rush today so much that we are now going to take all the material and put it in a regular digital book and have it on Amazon in Kindle, and they can rush through it because that's what they want to do. Yeah, I don't think it's ideal, but maybe it'll work for people. Very least they will get some sense, a couple of things, because beyond chewing, you have to understand how to orchestrate a meal, which has been totally lost by all of this. This is good and this is bad and don't do it, right? People are so confused. I mean, I write and I publish on medium.com. And
Yes.
I have actually a lot of people now reading me. And it's amazing. They ask these questions and I think, okay, you're only 24, but still, you can't figure this out, right? And they can't.
Thank you for sharing. Going back to Pilates, I also want to ask you, can you talk about some of your favorite props? How do people use them at home? On the website, I think what I need is head floater and smart seat. That's what I need because I'm sitting in my office at least like 6-7 hours a day. So can you share some of the props and how audience can use them at home?
Really everyone should have, whether they sit that much or not. And that was not my idea. It was Marika's idea. She would go around, and I'd be with her sometimes at the ballet, New York City Ballet, the administrative office, and she'd go around and she'd see somebody sitting with their legs crossed, and she'd hit the knee, uncross your legs, right? And they knew her, so they knew what she was referring to, and then she would leave, right? And of course they cross them. What I find kind of hypocritical and annoying is that you have all these Pilates teachers and they'll put you on the reformer or the Cadillac and spend an hour futzing with your pelvis and correcting every cell, and then they will sit with their legs crossed. Obviously, just doing that unbalances your pelvis, right? But it does many more things. Obviously, it's what's going to give you spider veins, not that that's life-threatening, but most women don't want them. And, it's just so obvious that is not the way to sit, but we've developed this habit. People did not sit like that in my generation, I want to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why they sit that way now? Everyone, men and women?
No.
It's for your favorite television, because if you're on TV and you sit with your legs crossed at an angle, you'll look thinner, and the television adds 20 pounds.
What?
So people start doing that, not thinking, well, wait a second, my alignment, I'm doing Feldenkrais or Alexander or Pilates or yoga, and now this isn't good for my alignment. No, they just forget all that and sit this way, and then before long, it's a very bad habit. The best thing to me with a smart seat is that you rock on it. You rock your pelvis. You don't just sit there. Because even if you have something that is, it's in the design of it makes sitting better. But sitting is still not fabulous, right? So you need to rock on it and rock off it, and it just makes it better. And it's a training tool. I mean, you're not going to take it with you everywhere, right? You go to somebody's office. I was at I went to see my financial advisor about a month ago, and I spent hours there. He's 6'5", and I'm 5'6". He weighs twice what I weigh, and I'm sitting in these huge chairs that are perfect for him, but they're not perfect for me. But what am I going to do? I'm not going to bring my own chair, right? So you always have to adapt, but you need the awareness. Oh, I have to change my position here. So that to me is important, and people are starting to get it. But remember, television, we just imitate what we see, right?
Right. What do you think some of the most useful props for dancers would be?
Dancers need the minis, and they need Parasetter, of course, particularly if they're performing all that stress. But what we are really working with, and Deborah and Emily and all these other people, is getting Ti4X out. And I think we Ti4 is the same functionally, but Ti4X looks beautiful on the body. It's better for a smaller body, and also you don't even feel it, but you get all that. You get the resistance, the stability, and it's incredible for coordination. So that's our big move there. That's what we're doing all the development work on now.
Don't forget to say no to the box.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. What are some big lifestyle recommendations that you have for dancers who want to have a healthier and longer career?
Okay, so we're talking about professionals, right? They're earning a living, right?
Yes, and maybe we could do this in two parts, like one, more of like a physical practice, and two, maybe thinking about how they're eating.
Okay, so physically, and this is, this is something that's hard to talk about because I can understand it. I've talked to Marika, I've talked to so many people. You have a natural born flexibility. And of course, it feels very good to really get into that more and more and more, and stretch and stretch and stretch. But, and this is just my theory because I can't prove it, but in talking to physical therapists and other people, we're trying to understand why today so many dancers are getting injured. Why? And, Emily Zachary Smith says, I'm seeing girls 21, I'm seeing girls in their early 30s who need hip replacements, and it's painful to talk about it. But she said to me, they're just overstretching. And I think it's more than that. I think we're talking about young people that they've been brought up on food that is just filled with hormones, particularly estrogen. And that gives you ligament laxity, number one. Number two is, as Deborah Wingard says, and she's in her 50s, where she said, we would stretch for 5 minutes and, rehearse and perform and have a cigarette, and that's it, right? So the fact is that these kids today have started stretching when they're tiny. My granddaughter is 3.5, she's stretching, right? So you take that at that age when you're growing, right, you can really overstretch your ligaments. So at this point, they need to, I know how good it must feel, and they want to continue getting their extension to be even better and better. But everyone is saying now they have to limit themselves to functional exercise, not in turnout, focusing on stability. And that's
what are some stability exercises that somebody could do maybe every day?
A lunge would be one, a squat, not a plie, not a grand plie or anything like that, a squat. And why we use, and I don't know if you saw the one we did with Emily, but there's more of them coming up. She just did simple functional exercises so that not a lot of repetitions, but with Ti4, so you would get the right alignment, the right positioning, the right stability. And remember, those little bungees, those are 30 pounds of resistance. That's a lot. People need to imagine that they are eating and they're blindfold. And in fact, there's restaurants coming here, 2 in New York, I think, you can't even get a reservation, from France, where you eat in the dark and you don't know what you're eating.
How cool.
Right? And it's expensive and you can't even get in. But what I'm trying to say is, and it gives me the idea to explain it to you, they've got to stop obsessing about what they're eating. Somehow drop this stress, because also the stress increases the cortisol. It's just too much, ruins the digestion. It's too much.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, once you do. So it just, if I could be with someone and convince them to be blindfolded and have someone feed them, I would, it sounds extreme, but just they would say, whatever. My son was over last night helping me pack, and he was talking about fruit or something, and I took out something I'd just gotten at Whole Foods. Whole Foods is in my building. And I said, Roger, if you close your eyes and I feed you these berries, you're not even going to know a raspberry from a strawberry from a blueberry. And he said, well, we're producing such a huge quantity, and this is organic, right? So you have to understand, a lot of this obsession with healthy is based on misinformation. And they should really read an article that was in Scientific American called Dirt Poor. And only someone my age can instantly understand it. What they're really saying is, we have ruined our land in America and our food supply with chemicals, hormones, and over-farming. Most of the food you eat has a fraction of the nutrition it should have. So all of this obsession is really misplaced. You need to take a vitamin pill. That's why they were invented, okay? That's about it, all right? So it's been proven, but you get these people healthy, and that healthy means, and frankly, if you're a dancer, and this is an important thing I have to tell you, which is very bad if you think being a vegan or a vegetarian is a good idea. For a female, I would say probably half of your daily protein can come from like 4 ounces of chicken, right? Half of it, of all that you need every day. You would need to have 9 cups of beans to equal that. Now think what that's going to do, eating that number of beans, right? How that would bloat you, right? Because it bloats, right?
Yeah.
So it's really a nuttiness. And also, dancers have really good taste. And I mean, they have an aesthetically great taste. So why are they compromising their eating with all these manipulations? Why aren't they understanding that that applies to food, that they have a gourmet palate and develop it and just eat less? I mean, they're a higher class. They shouldn't be eating it the way low class people are. And I have nothing to do with education or money. You know, President Trump, all he has is Coca-Cola and hamburgers. Thank you.
Well, I'm grateful for your advice. I think that's something that I know a lot of our listeners will be very grateful to hear. It seems like it's a lot more simple than I guess the current culture makes everything seem.
Everything's so overcomplicated. And why? Because that's the way to make money.
Right. Back to this idea of marketing. Yeah.
Yeah. If you had simply said to people, and this is, you weren't around, but in the 70s, Americans had this big scare about fat. I think his name was Chrysler, but anyway, it was a famous doctor working with the government, and he came up with this idea that fat was bad for your heart. It had nothing to do with, being fat, but just your heart. And it was all misplaced science. And the reason that he did this, and other people, and this is really shocking, is that, a gram of fat has 9 calories. A gram of protein has 4. A gram of carbohydrate has 4. So what did he think? We can keep Americans buying more if we tell them not to eat fat. Now, fat is very important for your body, makes everything taste good, and on and on and on, right? So, all we want people to do is buy more food. So what are we going to do? We're going to tell them, don't eat fat because it has 9 calories per gram.
I would like to ask one more question related to this advice. Do you have advice for those who want to open or manage their own fitness studio? Yoga or Pilates studios? Do you have any advice for them?
Well, the first thing to tell them is this. The government has just passed a law, California, New York, it's going to be everywhere. And it's very bad for boutique fitness. What they are now insisting is that if you have that kind of business, you need to pay everybody as an employee. Now, Emily Zachary Smith is not only head of the ballet for Tremaine, she also owns Hardcore Pilates in LA. And a friend who had an even bigger Pilates studios, I don't remember, Santa Monica or somewhere, a year ago was hit by the IRS with a $40,000 fine. And they did not say, oh, well, just take your time and pay it. They said, if you don't pay, we're going to close you down. So, it's serious. So at this point, you have to really, really think, because most of these studios have been able to function because they have dancers and they teach Pilates or yoga as a side thing. Maybe they only teach 10 hours a week. Now you're going to have to pay that person as an employee. That means all kinds of costs, but essentially it's about 20 to 25% more. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is a disaster for a business, okay? And that's the law now, and they're enforcing the law because it's going to be more money for the government. So that's the first thing they have to think of. Now, the second thing is this. we have an obese population. I mean, you're a dancer, you probably don't even recognize this, but 50% of the population is obese. So you really have to figure out how are you going to build a business with those numbers, right? Then the next thing I believe is you have to do serious retailing. The only way, and that's why we're starting to see this now, the only way that a business can survive today is product. You cannot make a service business work because of all the tax things and all the rest of it. You cannot do it. So retailing, and I don't mean selling people, toe socks or water bottles, which they could buy anywhere and already have. I'm talking about our products, having a workshop with head floater, which we see people doing now, and then it's built in the price for clients and they all live with a head floater, or explaining to them how to, use Smart Seat or whatever. You need to have unique products to retail, then you can have a good business.
That's really great advice. I feel like that could be for anybody in the business industry, especially at this point in time. And thank you for sharing that information about the new law that was passed. I definitely hadn't heard about that, so I'm very grateful we can share.
January 1, it became law.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So before we wrap up, I'm curious, do you think social media has impacted the Physical Mind Institute? You had mentioned you think it does, but I feel like you guys do such a wonderful job of sharing content, like specifically like Instagram videos, similar to how you work with Vimeo on how to use the products that you have. But how else have you seen it affect Physical Mind Institute?
It's very important. And it's hard for me at my age. So we have a woman named Ashley Benson, and she's one of our best instructors, and she really handles all of the social media for Physical Mind. Now, I have started to do personally, and I'm terrible at it, the social media for 80 Bites, because that's important. And I'm going to see how far I can do it, but I'm not doing a good job, I can tell you right now. Anyway, it's critical. You have to do it, and you have to be good at it. And it's a skill.
What have you seen, I guess, in your social media for Physical Mind? What are the qualities that you think really stick out and help people keep coming back to the platform?
They love interesting video. Video. It's not just a photo, it's video. And I think, and that's what I've said to Ashley, and I know Kristen McGee, and she's in some of our stuff. And I say, Kristen, stop talking. You go on paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, right? And I think that some of these social media people are just showing off and talking too much. But, maybe I'm wrong because I'm not that age. But to me, it's overkill. I think brevity is better and say something. But I think humor is the most important thing.
Before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to share or something you want to talk about more?
Well, I think that, and I see this with my son. My son is the CEO of Mass Appeal. And I see how, hip hop, of course, hip hop is just huge now. Mm-hmm. And he did our 80 Bites rap for me. But whatever, he's doing something with jazz now, but he's looking to work with dancers, have people do choreography. I mean, I really feel that, and I see this, Ashley Booter of New York City Ballet, she's developed her own little company, and she's doing more contemporary, more modern. I think people mixing all of that, even hip hop, which really, there's a lot of it in the new West Side Story, the movie Spiegelberg did, which Marissa was the physical therapist on. That's what I think is really important. Don't limit yourself in terms of the genre.
That's great advice.
Thank you. Now we have Flash 4 portion left, which we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is going to be fun.
Flash 4.
Number 1, if you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
I think for your audience, it should be Bill Maher, because you get politics, you get humor, you get lightness, and you get controversy. And that's what you people, I think, will benefit from, because you're all good girls. Maybe too good.
Thank you. What was the first dance you saw?
It seems to me it was, Peter Martin and Apollo. I'm trying to, but I lived a few blocks from New York State Theater, and that's where I went. But of course, in the 40s and 50s, I saw Oklahoma. I saw fabulous dancing, right? South Pacific, West Side Story in the 50s. So I guess I saw a lot of things at an early age, but it was, so long ago.
Okay. Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Yes, I think it does, because dance to me is young. It's young people.
Last one. What is sorry.
Youngness goes with social media.
Last one. What is your favorite social media platform?
I like Instagram.
Oh, yay! Us too.
Yes, that's my favorite.
I like the design of it. I also love seeing all the visuals. And then, friends put pictures of their grandchildren and children and whatever. But it's just a good mix, and you can follow somebody and then unfollow them if you get bored, right?
Right.
I don't like Facebook. It gives me a headache.
Well, Joanne, we want to just say thank you so much for your time on our podcast. You really are an expert in this field. And I feel like it's really cool to just pick your brain on your real honest opinions on some of these crazy trends and actual practical advice that not only ourselves but our listeners can apply in their own lives. So thank you again so much for making time for this conversation.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.